Thirsty for action? Let's crack open the Sunday six-pack.
Let's jump into the six-pack. 41-37. I'm up.
I lost no bets and didn't pick up any ground. And won my total, you didn't, and beat you head-to-head. All because I pushed the Texans.
Yeah, I mean that was you made that rule about pushes don't count as a half, but it makes sense. It makes sense.
Rules are the rules.
Oh, makes sense. So still neck and neck. I mean, I think it was one year. I think it was last year. It was like over by like Thanksgiving. So this is a good little sweat in our contest here. You're up first. Where you going?
All right, for my first pick of the Week 12 Sunday six-pack, I'm going with the Buffalo Bills plus 3.5 at the Philadelphia Eagles. This is a rare bet. I placed this bet on Sunday before the Monday night game. All I wanted was the hook here. I have the Bills power rated after that Jets game. I had the Bills power rated ahead of the Eagles. People were like, oh my God, you can't have the Bills better than the Eagles. The Bills have 6 wins. The Eagles are 9-1, and they went to the Super Bowl. I mean, this Eagles team, look, if you want to go by our luck rankings, by the way, Eagles are not, I don't know what's in the water in Pennsylvania where I'm from, but the Steelers and Eagles are number 2 by far. The Eagles have 9 wins. They're more like a 6.5, 7.5 win team. Bills, 5 wins are more like a 7. So these two teams should have the same amount of wins if there was a little better luck. You want to go by DVOA, Buffalo 5th, Philly 10th. Buffalo 8th in schedule adjusted expected Pythagorean win percentage, Philly 9th. You go by EPA. Defense, EPA per play on defense, the Bills are better than the Eagles. Offense, the Bills are better than the Eagles. You go by you want to go look at the just net points on the season. And they've played a lot of common opponents. Buffalo margin better than the Eagles. I mean, there's just I everywhere I look, I have the Bills. I just can't get to the Eagles being better than the Bills right now. Now, there are some cornerback injuries and Micah Hyde. There's some injuries in the secondary for the Bills that are a bit concerning. But you don't really need a slot against the Eagles. They have 2 guys they can throw to right now. Like, that's it. They throw a middle screen to Swift, or they try to throw it down the sidelines to their receivers. They have no one else. You got the corpse of Julio Jones. They don't have a tight end, and they don't have another receiver. So it doesn't really hurt. I think if you have Benford and Rasul Douglas, who it clicked for him, it was going to take him a couple weeks, but he was spectacular last week. And he was going against Zach Wilson, but just where he was on the field. And he's a big upgrade, mainly because it's not Elam anymore. So I think if you have Benford and Douglas on the outside, I think Hyde will play, but it's not a given. I think you'll be okay. You're also seeing McDermott has figured out some of the other pieces, and their edge rushers. I brought this up with the Bills. It wasn't just the injuries that they had. It was the drop off, and now Dorian Williams has played a little bit better. He's not getting as many snaps in the game, but they had their other edge rushers were banged up too. Some of their older guys. Von Miller's finally starting to look a little bit healthier, but some of their other guys like Floyd, they were dealing with injuries, and they finally look healthy. They can get pressure without blitzing. That's what you need to do against Jalen Hurts. But this Eagles offense just doesn't look right. Hurts he's not running it as much as he was last year, which is really hurting the offense. When he is the threat to run on every play, this offense is impossible to defend. I also think the play calling's taken a step back. Because he's not healthy and fully confident in the pocket, that just the accuracy isn't there. His deep ball has been great, but other than that, there's just this offense just looks off. And the Bills offense, by every metric, Allen has been great all year, even though people are like, he has so many interceptions. He has the 4th lowest pass defended rate in the NFL. He has the 9th lowest turnover-worthy play. And this Eagles secondary has been, bad. He can throw over the middle of the field against them. They don't have a slot. This could be a huge Kincaid game. You saw Joe Brady bring some nuance and some changes to the offense, and people will laugh and say, "Is that Jets defense got obliterated and had shut down every single offense with elite quarterbacks that they faced all season long, and the Bills just ran through them." It was a joke. They were absolutely dominant. So I like this matchup because what the Bills could do here, and they were finally using like Cook in the red zone more and in the passing game, but you saw Shakir have a big day. They can spread out Philly, put Allen in the gun, and when they spread out, they can go 4 wide, Kincaid, Shakir, and then you just have, Gabe Davis run wind sprints and go routes to take away a corner. I don't even think he was targeted last week, but which was interesting. But they could spread Philly out, and Philly doesn't have the secondary. They don't have the guys to match up here. Allen's playing really well, and I mentioned this before. Sometimes the Bills' offense is just a little off. It's going to look good. They're still going to put up points, but then when it clicks, it's like a rocket ship for like 4 to 5 weeks. So yeah, I can't get to over a field goal here. I'm happy to take over field goal. Eagles have been one of the luckiest teams in the NFL. Go back to the Dallas game; they got destroyed. I mean, they were thoroughly outplayed. Dallas just stepping out of bounds, stopped at the 1. Philly recovered all 3 fumbles. Go back to the Chiefs. Yeah, Mahomes just throw it up in the red zone. Yeah, Kelsey getting, fumbling it in the red zone. Scantling drops the game-winning touchdown pass. I mean, the red zone voodoo and the fumble voodoo. You had Hurts recover. These fumbles just keep falling into Philly's hands. So, yeah, Eagles have been extremely fortunate this season, and that's not going to last forever. A lot of voodoo, similar to the Steelers. I like the changes. It's a little unpredictability still with what Brady's going to do. Don't have a ton of film. And then the spot. I mean, Buffalo needs this game. Eagles coming off of a huge win at Kansas City, getting Super Bowl revenge, right? And you have the Cowboys and 49ers coming up, but they were celebrating with their fans. Short week. You got to come back, short week, come back home to face the Bills. Bills, max effort here, fully focused. We need to win. The Eagles have just been sloppy. They've been getting away with it, but they have not looked great on either side of the ball for weeks, despite their record. And people are like, well, we're winning. Yeah, well, so the Steelers were 10-0 a couple of years ago. It happens sometimes. It's a game with an oblong ball. 3.5 with the Bills all day here.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Bills they're right there with the Eagles. The Eagles are really the team that doesn't look quite right on either side of the ball, because even that secondary should be better. I know the corners are aging a little bit, but I mean, you talk about Slade, Bradbury. Now you got Bayard. Who am I missing? Blankenship. Like on paper, it's not a bad secondary, but you had Valdez.
But that's all you have, though.
And then you had Watson wide open last week. Like you could have got 2 third down and 4th down. You had guys wide open down the field. Just drop passes.
Yeah, if you could spread them out, they can't match up because of the loss of Maddox. So like if you could spread them out, and then you have like a guy like Kincaid, Shakir, they just don't have the corner depth to match up. I think Allen's gonna shred them here. Philly might have some success running the ball, but I actually think it's a decent matchup for the Buffalo defense. I just need like Bedford and Douglas and Hyde to play. Even if Teron Johnson is out, not as big of a loss as usual, so you can go heavy nickel here. So because the Eagles don't have like a slot that you need to shut down. So I assume that he's going to be out. I assume that Jackson's going to be out there, both in concussion protocol. I mean, I guess they could play, but yeah, Buffalo plus 3.5 all day. Great spot. And I think it's an inflated number because of the Eagles' luck.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. For my first pick and the second overall of the Week 12 6-pack, I'm going with the Houston Texans plus 1.5 at home against the Jaguars. Love this spot. Number one, I'm getting points with CJ Stroud, who we've talked about ad nauseum. Already one of the best quarterbacks in the league. And I like the matchup here too, because we know Jacksonville, one of the zone heaviest defenses in the league. Houston, number 1 in the league in adjusted net yards and attempt against zone coverage, 8.5. Last 3 games, Houston 30 points a game, 486 yards of total offense on average. And they left points on the table they didn't have a kicker in one of the games, a couple of bad interception in the red zone, some tip balls. So missed field goals, a lot of things going on. So it could have been even, they could have had even more points. And then I think Houston, just plays better at home, which makes sense for, young quarterback, kind of new team, a lot of new pieces, new coach. But at home, 26 points per game, 410 yards on average of total offense, 6.1 yards per play, a point differential of 5.5. On the road, 21.6 points per game, just 344 yards, 5.4 yards a play, and their point differential is positive, but just by a half point. So much better home team. And the defense has been a lot better since the bye. Pre-bye, they were 23rd in success rate. They were giving up 344 yards a game. Since the bye, up to number 6 in defensive success rate, just under 40%. And they're giving up just under 315 yards a game. All 3 of their cornerbacks now rank in the top 36 at PFF out of 114 qualifiers. Stingley just got back. He's actually the worst one. Nelson and the slot corner Thomas are in the top 16. And this Jacksonville team, nice stacking up some wins here. They're up to 7-3, but I think they're a little bit overrated. Pythagorean theorem has them at 5.7 wins, so overachieving by over 1 win. They're averaging 5.1 yards a play, allowing 5.5. They're averaging 6.2 net yards per pass, allowing 6.4. They're averaging just 3.7 yards per carry and allowing 3.9. So, I mean, this team is, they're getting outgained on average by 7 yards per game. So this Jacksonville team, I think, is running a little bit lucky here. And if you look at who they beat and their performance, it varies drastically by the quality of opponent, specifically the quality of the quarterback in the offense. So Jacksonville versus Anthony Richardson, Desmond Ridder, Gardner Minshew, Derek Carr, Kenny Pickett, and Will Levis, 6-0 straight up, 6-0 against the spread, point differential of 13.3. Jacksonville against Mahomes, Stroud, Josh Allen, and Brock Purdy offenses, 1-3 straight up, 1-3 against the spread, minus 13.5 point differential. So I think that this Houston offense can, they put up 37 in the first meeting. A lot of that, there was a lot of luck involved in that too. The game was a lot closer than that, but you had some special teams weirdness going on there. But Jacksonville at 7-3 against the spread, when you have a divisional road favorite covering 70% or more of the time, 47-77 against the spread since 2005, just 38%. So I make Houston a small favorite here. So I am all over the Texans catching points at home in a game that, what is this? Is this for the lead in the tie? With Houston's what, 6-4, right? Yeah, this would be for a tie in the division. So yeah, big game here, but give me Houston.
Yeah, this would be for outright first place in the division. Jags win. They go up by 2 games. And if the Texans win, they're in first place.
Because they have the tiebreaker. Yep.
Yeah, they'd have a season sweep over the Jags from that 37-17 win early in the season. Yeah, the only thing that I've been worried about with the Texans, and I backed them the past couple of weeks because I was confident in the coach's comments of what they said after that Panthers game, which I think was the key to their season. They said, no, we realize we can't do that. We can't run into walls. We have to give it to Stroud. And I sometimes you can hear coaches say things and you don't believe it. There's, you got to go with your intuition and gut sometimes. But I believed it with how they were saying it and their conviction. And last week was the perfect example of that. You're playing a Cardinals team that you can run on, right? But why run on? Why, waste too many runs when you have CJ Stroud? Last week against a bad run D, perfect mix. They, Singletary got 22 carries for 112 yards. Stroud drops back 38 times. Perfect. Throws for 340. And now you're going to go against a good run D that's attackable in the secondary. So I have full confidence that Texans aren't going to get too inefficient and bogged down running the ball. So I agree. I like the Texans here too. I'll have more on this later. All right, for my second pick and the third overall of the Week 12 Sunday 6-pack, I am going with the Atlanta Falcons +1 at home against the New Orleans Saints. these two teams to me are like mirrors. I don't like really either one of them. I like the Falcons a little bit more overall, and the Falcons are a little bit healthier. Saints just lost Michael Thomas. They won't have Marshawn Lattimore. That's huge. Everything they want to do on defense. Falcons, by the way, the unluckiest team in our most recent luck rankings. Those things have been very good to bet. If you haven't checked them out, make sure you do on the Action Network app at actionnetwork.com. Falcons will get Onyemata back. Onyemata revenge game, maybe? They'll get Alfred back in the slot. He's been good there. And then the wild card. You want to hear a wild card for who's coming back for the Falcons this week?
Who?
Can you guess?
Desmond Ridder?
No, Desmond Ridder will start. I don't really care who starts for the Falcons. I don't have any difference. Parker Hesse. Parker Hesse.
Oh, I saw that. He's off the practice squad injury list now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's practicing. He's going to play. You might laugh at like, who the hell is Parker Hesse? But their run numbers last year when he's on the field, they use him as like a sixth offensive lineman. So I think that it can provide a boost to their run, which I can't figure out why the Falcons rush efficiency numbers are not better, right? You have good backs. Your offensive line is a good run blocking unit. So maybe Hesse provides a boost, but I basically just think these two teams are pretty equal. Falcons are healthier. I don't like either staff. So like there's no, it's kind of like incompetence versus incompetence. I'll take the Falcons kicker. I'll take the healthier team. I'll take the home field advantage. And in a game where if you look at both these teams, it's like, all right, they're both good against the run. And then like they both are pretty mirrored, but I make the Falcons a slight favorite. I'll take them at home catching a point. I actually trust their offense a little more. I don't even know who's going to be at quarterback for the Saints. If it's Carr, I think it's probably going to be Carr coming off concussion protocol. But I don't think that there's much of a difference price-wise between Winston and Carr. And I think it's going to be Carr. And the way to attack this Atlanta team is you got to attack downfield. You got to hit explosive passing plays. That's just not something Carr is doing. So I guess I would prefer Carr to start here. But if Winston starts, I have a dog against Winston. I mean, he could throw picks. And so either way, I like the Falcons. I think they get this win. And I mean, this is just sidebar. That would just make sense. The NFC South, like all these teams are going to be like these three teams, the Bucs, Saints, and Falcons. They're all going to be like 7-8 going into the last weekend.
Yeah, per usual. Yeah, I'd lean Falcons too. I mean, like you said, it's kind of two just teams that generally are bad in these kind of spots. Like Falcons at home under Arthur Smith, they're bad, but the Saints on the road, Derek Carr, Dennis Allen, all bad. But yeah, there could be, we don't really know exactly what's going on with the Saints quarterback situation. You did lose two of your better players in Lattimore and Thomas. So, and the Saints team already was not as good as everyone hyped them up to be. They were just, just in a weak division. Everyone's like, all right, yes, this is a 10-win team. No, it's not. It's a very mediocre team, if that. So Falcons, I mean, I just don't know what Arthur Smith did with like the guy who used to be sharp. That's kind of my worry. But like going against Dennis Allen, that's negated, right? It's I mean, Smith probably has the advantage in this.
Want to hear something funny with the Saints? Yeah, I would take Arthur Smith for sure. The Saints, if you look at their wins this year, does Bryce Young make it through the year? Bryce Young should be a backup. But here are their wins. The Titans by 1 against Tannehill. He's no longer the quarterback. The Panthers by 3 against Bryce Young, who's been the worst quarterback in the league. The Patriots, Mac Jones, no longer the quarterback. The Colts gets a backup quarterback. Tyson Bagent, no longer the quarterback. I mean, all they did is and they had like 5 turnovers in that game, barely won. But all they've done is face. I mean, those are their wins. Titans by 1. Titans had a defensive touchdown called back. They would have won. But Titans, Panthers, Patriots, Colts, and Bears with Bagent. Like, come on.
Yeah,
give me the Falcons.
We talked about this at the beginning of the year. Saints are The only reason they're going to be around is because of the schedule, and they're barely scraping by. Like they're with the schedule they have, barely. But yeah, I lean Falcons as well. For my second pick, the fourth overall of the Week 12 Sunday 6-pack. Not a normal style pick for me, but I'm going Niners, a -7 at the Seattle Seahawks, and there's a couple of reasons why. First of all, I think something's up with Seattle and Geno Smith here. You know, he got hurt, comes out of game with what do they call it, a tricep contusion, comes back in the game, makes one throw, needed to make another throw, but he just hands the ball off instead. And now he's like, oh yeah, the first they're saying the headset went out, then they're saying it was a run pass option, or can he just not throw? And then today I'm seeing, oh, Geno Smith is limited in practice. He's the first quarterback up. And then I watched the video and he's just jogging. He's not throwing. And then I see a report that Drew Lock is taking the first team snap. So Pete Carroll's notorious for being overly optimistic with these injury reports. Geno's being coy. I mean, it could be all a mirage, gamesmanship, but I don't think Geno Smith.
Short week.
Yeah, I don't think Geno's healthy. I'm going to say that. Like whether he starts or not. So I make this line about just a little over 7 with Geno in, but I make the total a lot higher with Geno in. So the fact that it's sitting at 43 is also kind of weird to me. But either way, that's just one part of it. If Geno plays against this defense, whoever plays, Lock, Geno, they're going to struggle because San Francisco, the defense, what they do is they stop explosive plays. They give up the fewest explosive plays in the league. And I mentioned, Hufanga, their safety got hurt, and he was great last year, pretty good this year. But Jair Brown, a rookie, has been playing even better than Hufanga. So another one of these situations, kind of like the Vikings, where like key guys get hurt and he's just not suffering any drop off. But Seahawks, really bad on third down, but really good at creating explosive plays. So they live off explosive plays, but they can't convert third downs. They're 6th in explosive play. That's how they get offense. They're bottom 3 in third down conversion rate. And this has been an issue going back to last year. Red zone too. So if you're facing a defense that's going to take away the explosives and force you to drive down the field, and by the way, a defense that's going to that can get pressure with 4.
Yeah, get pressure on Geno. That's key.
Yep, you can get pressure. You can even like this. They play a lot of zone, but they can man up if they want. And this is a situation they might do that. But there's so many options now. They have such a deep defensive line. They added Chase Young, they added Gregory. Like they're buying low on all these like former first round picks. And then you look back at the track record and it aligns perfectly with what you would think would happen when this Seahawk offense faces the Niner D. They faced each other 3 times last year with this kind of current construction of each squad, more or less. And Geno barely averaged 200 net passing yards per game, the same amount of turnovers as touchdowns, 3 each. So, 1 touchdown per game. He led the Seahawks to just 14 points per game, 14.3 points per game over the 3 meetings against the 49ers. So it's going to be a struggle. And before you even factor in the injury or the potential for Drew Lock, DK Metcalf also popped up as it did not practice on Tuesday. So that's never good on a short week. We only have 1 day of practice left. So
Lockett isn't 100%.
Lockett's not 100%, and Kenneth Walker is looking likely to miss.
So
you're losing some explosiveness there. So just a lot of things, just suboptimal, like worst case scenario on a short week for Seattle. And then let's flip it over to the San Francisco offense, because the thing about the San Francisco offense is they finally have Debo, Ayuk, Kittle, Trent Williams all healthy at the same time. And this year they've had those guys healthy 7 games, and they've had at least one of them out in the other 3. And in the 7 with them all together, San Francisco averaging 31 points a game with a point differential of 17.5, with at least one of them out. Doesn't matter. Could be more than one, could be one. Doesn't matter how many. At least one of them out, 21 points per game. and a slightly negative point differential. San Francisco offense is top 6 on third down for the whole year, like regardless of who's in and who's out. They're top 6 on third down, top 6 in the red zone. Seattle defense, bottom 5 on third down, bottom 5 in the red zone. So on one side, you have a team that stops explosive play that Seattle lives on. On the other side, you have a Seattle team that can't stop, the situations that San Francisco just slices and dices you up and puts points on the board. And then if you just look back and you say, okay, short week, it is, tough place to play in Seattle. But San Francisco has, gone in there and won by at least 8 last year. And I think it was Purdy's first or first or second start, but it's a tough place to play. But if you look back and say, okay, I think San Francisco is going to win because Seattle's pretty banged up. San Francisco's a better team, all the matchup things I just mentioned. Well, San Francisco, when they win big. They're kind of like Buffalo was, last year. All 7 wins this year by at least 7 points for the Niners. 6 of the 7 wins this year by 13 or more. If you go back to the start of last season, 20 of their 22 wins, including the postseason, have been by at least 7. 18 of their last 22 wins have been by 8 or more, which is relevant now that the lines moved to 7 at most spots. And Brock Purdy, 13 of his 14 wins have come by at least 7. 11 of his 14 have come by at least 8 in his career starts, which means 72% of Brock Purdy starts, period, have ended with them winning by 7. 61% of his starts have ended with them winning by 8. And that's all throughout all games. In the division, Brock Purdy, average margin of victory, 15.4. Never lost a division game. Every single win has been by at least 7 points. And you go back just to the start of last year, every single division game San Francisco's played, they've won, and they've won by 7 or more. So, and then you factor in Thanksgiving favorites since 2004, 36-18 against the spread, 67%. Road favorites on Thanksgiving, 19-6, 75%. Public favorites, which is rare that, public favorites do well because, again, that's kind of what the books are trying to avoid. But public favorites on Thanksgiving, 28-13, 68% against the spread over the past 2 decades. So going with the 49ers, I just think it's a brutal spot for Seattle. Like, the home field is worth more than most home fields, but that's pretty much the only thing Seattle has working in its favor right now. Brutal matchup, brutal injury luck. So give me the Niners.
Yeah, I like the Niners here. I'll have money line. That'll be close out my Thanksgiving parlay. Only thing I worry about, Seattle, a lot of runs, ton of zone. You just got to avoid the Purdy mistakes. But the Seattle defense, I've been saying it for weeks, is overrated as a whole. If you go back early in the season, people are like, the Seattle run D is really good. Since week 5, 30th in EPA per rush. And if you look, so what happened before week 5? You had 3 games. Here were the 3 games. They played the Panthers. The Panthers, Dalton threw it 60 times. They only ran it 14 times in that game for 40 yards. So they were just playing from behind, throwing it. So obviously they did nothing on the ground. And it's the Panthers. They can't run it. Then they played the Giants, who had third string offensive lineman with Matt Breida as their lead back. So obviously they didn't do anything. That inflated their defensive numbers. Then they played the Bengals, before the Bengals really could do anything with Burrow. The Bengals only ran it 15 times in that game for 46 yards. So they didn't even try to run it. Since then, everyone's been able to run it on Seattle. So I think that narrative is, I don't know, maybe still out there, but I think that San Fran will have success running the ball. And that's the foundation to everything. Speaking
of narratives, because we both kind of talked about it and said, Brock Purdy's been a little suspect against some zone coverages at certain points. Well, had 2 big games. You had that big game against Jacksonville, predominant zone team. And now, if you look offenses throughout the league, number 1, I already mentioned, in adjusted net yards per pass against zone coverage is the Houston Texans. Number 2, none other than the San Francisco 49ers. So whatever concerns we had kind of eliminated those in short order. I really think it just comes down
Purdy's fine. Purdy's fine against zone. He's really good against man. It's just that every once in a while, as you'd expect, he hasn't even played a full season worth of games. He'll just will not see a linebacker or something, and then and throw a pick, not see somebody. But yeah, overall, I mean, this offense works against any defense.
Yeah, I mean, it's really. I think the key is really having all of those studs healthy, because when you have Debo, Kittle, Ayuk, and McCaffrey and Trent Williams blocking with Purdy's accuracy and anticipation, and it's just and then Shanahan's play calling. I mean, San Francisco doesn't even have. They could have a shitty defense, and this team would still cover by margin over a lot of teams. I mean, this team is they're 6 of the 7 wins by 13 or more. I mean, that's pretty absurd. So, yeah, give me the Niners. Where are you going with your third?
Yeah, the one thing that you still have to worry about with Purdy, the pressure. Every quarterback's numbers drop off under pressure. His are a little more, the gap's a little wider, but you don't have to worry about that a ton against Seattle. For my third pick and the 5th overall of the Week 12 Sunday 6-pack, I'm going with the Cincinnati Bengals +1 against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Back to the formula. One of the things that the Steelers voodoo regression that's coming, one of the things that makes me happy is that they play a ton of backup quarterbacks, which means, I was happy. I wasn't, like I said last week, when Watson was out, I was like, oh yeah, I get the Browns at under a field goal now. Similar spot here. Look, number one, the Steelers, they're still number 1 in our luck rankings for a reason. Last week, they were projected to lose 19-5 in that game. They fire Matt Canada, as they should have, but what are you going to do in 4 days? I don't think it's going to change much this week. Kenny Pickett still refuses to throw over the middle of the field. You can literally drive a super yacht through his passing chart every week. He just throws to the sideline. He's not comfortable throwing over the middle of the field because he's not good. And that's where you have to attack Cincy. You have to attack their safeties. You have to attack in the middle of the field. And look, it's going to be Jake Browning starting for Cincinnati. And I love backing backup quarterbacks in this spot. First game, first start. You have a couple of things here. This is Cincy's season. Their season's already over, but in their heads, right? They're 5-5. They got to win this game, stay in the wild card hunt, or they're done. This is when everyone else rallies, right? First game of the backup quarterback, just like in the NBA, when the star player's out, a lot of times the market kind of over adjusts and everyone else knows they have to step up. And then you get like a great effort that game. And then the next game after the stars, you come back down to earth. Also, no film. That's why backup quarterbacks since 2020, making their first career start, 19-7-2 against the spread. Everyone else steps up, lack of film. You have some unpredictability. So Browning's not great. At least got his beak wet in Baltimore. They'll have a pretty easy game plan for him here. This game's going to go similar to what we saw last week. He'll throw it up to Chase a couple times. Chase should be 100% here. We'll see if Higgins can go. But it's going to be a low-scoring, ugly game. I don't trust the Steelers' offense as far as I can throw them, even against Jake Browning. And by the way, this Steelers defense just lost to DTR, who was doing one-read throws, 4 yards the entire game. They should have lost to Jordan Love. And they could have lost to Will Levis. Those quarterbacks have done nothing in their other games. So this defense is overrated too. I think the Bengals, you'll get a max effort here. Extended rest with a couple extra days to prepare Browning. And I like the Bengals as a home dog against this Steelers team that has a ton of regression still coming. This team should have 3 wins on the year.
Yeah, I could believe it, but it was just so disconcerting. Like, the Steelers did essentially what I thought they'd do for like 58 minutes of the game. They were right there. They got a long run. Cleveland got a long run. They got a field goal. Cleveland gets a field goal. They get a field goal. And then it starts looking up near the end. And then red zone cuts away and it cuts back. And DTR is already past midfield. And after they punted it inside the 15, I'm like, what in the hell? So yeah, this defense, man. It's got some good players, but yeah, there are definitely holes. The only thing I think I think it would have been more ideal if Matt Canada hadn't been fired, honestly, because now you have some of that, new
you could
coach
change up some
magic
things.
on the
There's some
other
element of
side.
surprise for
Yeah,
them.
you do have, and that's not. I mean, we've seen this with the Bills. We've seen this with the Raiders. It's not ideal, but I mean, I can't knock it. I can't knock you for betting on the Steelers to continue to regress and fading Kenny Pickett, who Kenny Pickett's he's weighing points on the road. So I mean,
yeah. I honestly think that they'd be better with Bortles, aka Trubisky, at this point.
My third pick and the 6th overall of the Week 12 Sunday 6-pack, I am going with the Los Angeles Rams -1 at the Arizona Cardinals. And this is one where I've adjusted for Kyler. I've adjusted for Cooper Kupp being out, which seems like he's going to be ankle injury. They're calling him day to day, but I'm thinking he's going to be out. But I've adjusted the Cardinals up for Kyler, knocked the Rams down for Cooper Kupp, and I still make the Rams, closer to a field goal favorite here on the road. So going with the Rams here, I just think they are the better team, and I think Arizona's luck is going to run out, whereas I think the Rams haven't fully hit their stride yet. I think they're a little better than the product that we've seen on the field. It's just Rams are another team. They started hot on offense and Nakua broke out, but just hasn't seemed quite right. And maybe Kyron Williams coming back will help because he's number 1 in the entire league in rush success rate. The only player that has a higher success rate on rush attempts than Jalen Hurts is Kyron Williams. So that's a good thing for the Rams. But overall, when I look at this Cardinal team, that offense, I still don't think it's been a massive upgrade from Murray to Dobbs. Murray's definitely added, made some great plays with his legs. But you look at Arizona last week, for example, they catch Houston napping with Rondale Moore, who almost never goes deep anymore. He goes deep, catches a touchdown. That's 2 minutes into the game, minute and a half into the game. They spend the next 58 and a half minutes. They score 10 points, even though they got gifted 3 turnovers and a missed field goal of nearly 50 yards. So I think this Arizona team, they got lucky with the Falcons, getting to play the Falcons, no Grady Jarrett at home to start. And then, I guess they covered.
Onyemata was out too.
Yeah.
Both of those guys was huge.
Yeah. They're running a little lucky. And the way I look at it is the Falcons a couple weeks ago were weighing 2.5 for much of the week on the road in Arizona. And I have the Rams rated better than the Falcons. So to get a point, and some books I'm seeing like a pick 'em or a +1. So definitely shop around. Can also take money line. I'm totally cool with that. But I think this Ram team is just better. I think they have some positive regression coming. They have just 3 wins on a year, tough schedule, but their Pythagorean theorem says they should have 4.3 wins. And that's even with the Brett Rippon catastrophe game included in that. So I think the Rams are just the better squad here. And when you look at the Cardinals and Kyler Murray, this is where you want to fade him generally at home in the division. Kyler's one of those quarterbacks that, you catching him as a dog on the road, generally exceed expectations, which makes sense. He can create things out of thin air. But, in these kind of spots, home games, division, he tends to struggle. He struggled with this Raheem Morris defense through a lot of different iterations. But overall, he's just 3-8, 27% against the spread at home in the division, failing to cover by an average of 7.5 points per game. So over a touchdown, the spread has been too high on Kyler in these spots. So you could probably wait on this one because I think the money is on Arizona here. Money's coming in Arizona. So that's why you haven't seen me put it in the app yet. I'll see where it ends up. At the end of the day, if I do miss it, I'm just gonna take Rams money line. But I think there's chance we might get the Rams +1 or even better than that. So give me LA on the road against this number 31 ranked defense in Arizona that, by the way, just lost their green dot in Kaiser White. So this Ram team, probably their best offensive game was against the Cardinals earlier this year. Kyron's back. He had a big game. So I think they can do enough here. And they have the better of the two defenses. And I think they have the better of the two offenses as well. So give me the Rams.
Yeah, no feel here about leaning that way. It's the circle of life in the NFC West. Rams on the Cardinals, who on the 49ers, who on the Rams, who also on the Seahawks. But yeah, Rams are nothing.
All right. So to recap, Stuck has the Bills +3.5, the Falcons +1, and the Bengals +1. I have the Texans +1.5, Niners -7, Rams -1.